Welcome to the Upreneur podcast for the University of Entrepreneurs. I am your host, Jeremy Straub.
Welcome to our next episode of Upreneur. We are here with Carolyn Zaumeyer from LowTE Florida, local business owner here to South Florida, but actually has national reach. And I know that I've seen you talking to Dr. Oz. I've seen you talking to Suzanne Summers. You get yourself around on the national stage, and clearly in your space, I know you're number one in Florida in bioidentical hormone provider, but you're also number two in the country. So clearly you've expanded just outside of South Florida. But we're excited to talk to you with you. I appreciate you being here, Carolyn.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Carolyn, why don't we first start out, I was doing some research and trying to understand your business and kind of how you provide it. Can you just explain it in layman's terms of what bioidentical hormone provider is?
Sure. As we age, both men and women, we lose our hormones and we quit producing what we used to. And that's why we don't feel as well as time goes on. And what we do is we optimize those hormones, bring them back into the body using bioidentical, which the bio means biology, so that it's derived from wild yams. And identical, the chemical molecule in our product, is exactly what our bodies used to produce. So it fits into the receptor sites all throughout the body and gives incredible benefits, not just to feeling good, but also for better health as you age. So we use a pellet system after we do a medical history and get some lab work, we combine that together and scientifically dose it so we know exactly what your body would benefit from. And then we use a little pellet system that goes underneath your skin on your backside, just right under your belt. And it gently brings up your hormones over the next 4 to 6 weeks, where you'll just start to notice different things. Your sleep may become better, your energy, your mood, sexual thoughts, sexual satisfaction, joint pain is even relieved for many people. A lot of different things. Hormones affect all different parts of the body, not just, we think of hormones as like sex organs, but there's actually receptor sites all over your body for these hormones. And when we don't have them, we don't feel so well. So the pellet system, 3 to 5 months.
So is it similar when people say hormone replacement, is it similar to that, just a different method of being able to do it, or am I completely talking out of school?
Nope, you got it. It's just the best delivery system. It's the safest way of getting hormones into your body, the safest delivery, where if you were to use a patch, a pill, a shot, a cream, a troche, or whatever, it doesn't regulate it the way it does when it's inside your body. It actually works with your cardio release, meaning when the blood supply passes by, it picks up the micro pieces rather than getting a whole bunch of it all at once as you rub it in. You get a big spike and then it comes down. During the spike, you feel great, but when it comes down, you don't feel so well, especially with guys doing shots. They'll do a great big shot of testosterone, feel like a rock star, and then it'll start to come down. And before they're due for their next shot, they're feeling angry and cranky and just not really good. So we just bring them up and hold them steady rather than the up and down, the roller coaster of any other delivery system. That's why I'm so happy about the pellet system. I've used it myself for 7.5 years and really didn't feel well during the changes until I got the pellet.
Well, I'm excited to kind of dig in and understand a little bit about how it works and go through. But most of the listeners here are listening from a business perspective of kind of how to build a business, how to make their business more scalable and successful. And I know you've written a couple of books. One was talking about, and you're a nurse by trade and spent time as a nurse practitioner for a while. Can you talk a little bit and just kind of step back? You're a technician as a nurse. You went to school for being a nurse. And now you're an entrepreneur and have a pretty successful business.
Yes.
How did you make that jump from being a nurse to running a successful business? Because there's a lot of people that are probably, especially those that are on the front line right now, thinking about how do I actually start a business out of maybe a skill set or a technical skill that I've learned.
It was interesting when I graduated from FIU with my nurse practitioners years ago. The first physician I worked with said, in 2 years, you're going to hang your own shingle. You're going to have your own office. And I think I responded with bull, something else.
Right.
Not my desire to have my own practice. I was completely happy working for him. It was all good. But it turned out 2 years later, almost to the date, I opened my own practice in the same office that I'm in today. And that was a gynecology practice. And then over time, I started fine-tuning my menopause prescribing skills and really focused in on that. Now my business is pretty much 95% bioidentical hormones, and then a little bit of gynecology for the patients that are still hanging on. I don't take insurance, so, but the transition was odd because yes, you have to take off your little nursing cap and put on a business cap and change roles, because being benevolent as a nurse, I wanted to give everything away. And in the first month or two, my office manager came to me. She says, Carolyn, if we keep giving everything away, you're not going to have a practice to help these people in 6 months. So I had to make an invisible line in the hallway of who talks about money. Like if it came up in conversation with me as the provider, I would say, okay, we can work with you. Mary Ellen will help you with that. And I just had this line that I didn't talk to the patients about money because I just give it to them.
Right.
We do. We help people. Oh, you don't have the money? Oh, I'll do it for free. No problem. But it's not a good business model. So she took over that, and she was very good. She worked with everybody, payment plans and drop off the money later and call me with a credit card, that type of thing. And so everything worked out well with that. And it really taught me that I need to be very careful about that division. And that's what's worked for me, because I still
Did you have a business background before that you had a business background, or you were just into nursing? And then how for somebody to identify already with you that 2 years later you're going to be running your own practice, you had to have some sense of entrepreneurism in your blood. You had to have these ideas coming through how this could be a better business when you're working for the doctor. Yeah. How did you get a sense to go, I should have my own business and I should make that jump? Or the people around you, how did they see that?
I guess it was, I'm an independent thinker and a problem solver, and he realized I really didn't need him, and so,
right.
You can be on your own, and I'm like, holy cow, it's a compliment. And, I appreciate him supporting me and encouraging me. The way it came about was there was one female physician, GYN practitioner on the east side of town. I was working out west. And she used to smoke in the exam room and while she was doing pap smears and all that, in character. But anyway, she passed. And so there was not a female provider over on the east side, east of 95 in Fort Lauderdale. And all the pharmacy reps then are like, Carolyn, you got to do it. You got to do it. And I had an office space, the one I'm in now, that I actually owned, and I had it up for sale. And it had 2 exam rooms. And it was like all the arrows were pointing that you need to do it. And it was kind of like, even though inherently it wasn't what I wanted to do, I just knew if there was ever a time to do it, that was the time. I knew it was a prime time to do it if I was ever going to do it. And no other nurse practitioner had an independent practice back then in Florida. I was the first one to actually open it. There weren't any laws that I couldn't do it, but there weren't any laws saying that I could. And so, 1994, I think. And so I opened it up, and I just kept my pocketbook close by just in case somebody came in and said I couldn't be doing this. So it actually worked. And part of it, for the new entrepreneurs, what I did is I had a lot of fear, and I kept a little binder of everything I needed that I would think of that I needed to buy, and, medical office supplies, what questions for my attorney, what questions for my accountant, and different things like that. But I had this anxiety inside, like, what if I fail? So I sat down and had a little session with myself with a pen and paper to write down exactly what were my fears, what was giving me that anxious feeling. And then once I dissected them, they were silly. One of them is I would feel embarrassed with the nurses I worked with in the operating room before I opened my own practice, that if I failed. And then I got to thinking about it. And these were the women that went to happy hour instead of going back to school like I did. So it was kind of like, who cares? I think. So I was able to make that fear go away. Then the other fear was the financial one, which is big. You're taking a big risk. Well, I put pen to paper. And then finally, when I totaled everything up, if I had only one patient through the whole year, how much money would I lose? I had to laugh because it was less than what my brothers owe me. I have 3 older brothers, and I was the bank of Carolyn. And so I thought, well, what the heck? If I fail, I'll just have another brother, So it wasn't, once I really thought through those fears and dissected them, I found out that they were unrealistic and unrational. I didn't need to deal with them.
You bring up a great example of, I think, what a lot of successful entrepreneurs do. And they probably don't do it systematically, And I know it was called fear setting, right? And actually, and for those that are listening, Google fear setting. I think a guy named Tim Ferriss actually put together the whole thing, and he only did this a couple of years ago, so clearly you did this way ahead of time. But writing down, what if I did this? What's the worst case scenario? And write down all your fears. What's the scariest outcomes that come from it? And then all of a sudden write what you can do to prevent those outcomes. And then the third thing is and then what can I do to repair my life if any of those outcomes come? And as you get that all down on paper, you realize that the fears aren't as bad as you think they are, and most of them you can handle through. But most people don't take a look, and I love how you just said you wrote it down on paper. It's take a look at it and going, okay, I can handle all that stuff. And I can handle the worst case scenario on that. And so, I commend you on it. And I think there's a lot of professionals that would love to start their own business that aren't willing to be able to take that jump. And you actually, I think, wrote a book on it for nurse practitioners that want to start their own practice to be able to do it, which is something they can look up if they Google your name. You can be able to see the book you kind of read through, you wrote about it. Now, along with that, you've now taken your practice from where it was. You started then researching where can you have a differentiator. And from what I saw, it's really on this pellet hormone therapy. And from what I read is you sought out a couple different mentors and you found one person to be able to learn from and do that. Can you talk a little bit about your thought process through that? Because, from what I read and saw, you went and explored a couple different places and did. What made you decide to try to find a differentiator? And obviously you kind of barked up the wrong tree in a couple different places, so you found someone that you really thought was credible that you can be able to learn around. Can you talk just a little bit about what was going on through your head and how you went about making that decision? Because clearly you built a very successful business around it.
Yeah, it was interesting because there was a health study, the Women's Health Initiative back in 2002, that really blew the synthetic hormones out of the water. It really showed, that they really weren't the best thing to do. And I had a lot of patients on hormones, synthetic hormones. So I needed to find a way to keep these patients happy and feeling well. And so I knew bioidenticals were the answer, but I just didn't know enough about them because they don't teach it in nursing school. They don't teach it in medical school or anywhere. And so you have to go outside to learn it. So I researched who I thought were the top 3 in the United States and went off and studied under them and came back very excited that the research was crazy good. And the first one was really going through the research of not only the safety, the field.
And what did you actually do? Did you just call these people randomly being like, I want to go learn from you? Or they
a lot of them had training programs, that they would do at seminars and all that. And, so I get this great information about how healthy it was for you to age with the hormones, how good you would feel and the whole bit, but they weren't teaching me how to dose it. And I knew that was critical because I wanted to give the right hormone, the right dose, and the best delivery system. And so I went, started off Salt Lake City, went to Orlando, then finally to Naples. And still I was frustrated. And chatting with a friend of mine, a physician in Utah, I said, I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to, because I didn't feel right about it. It just was too uncertain. Oh, you put a pearl of cream here and rub it in, and hope for the best. So it just wasn't working with my black and white grid brain. So he says, you have to go to Dallas and study under Dr. Gary Donovitz. Like, well, what do I have to lose? I pack up, I go study under Dr. Donovitz, and it was like, the aha moment. I mean, he filled in the gaps of knowledge, gave me the confidence that what I was doing was the right thing to do and how to manage it, the science behind it, the actual procedure to do it, and just gave me a lot of support, marketing help, business help, and clinical help. So that was the right fit for me because I kind of have a black and white brain, and he created, he's brilliant. He created this dosing site where we can put in aspects of the patient's medical history along with their labs and scientifically dose what they need for their body. So we'll know exactly, like if I were to draw your blood, I would know exactly how much testosterone your body would benefit at this stage of life. And that changes over time. So it's really interesting to have that tool. And that was critical for me to sign up. It was just like.
Well, I love that you saw an opportunity, that you felt there was a need from what you're doing. Because many business owners, they see a need, but they don't kind of jump on it. And then you were smart enough to realize that, you're not going to, it wasn't like you were going to completely come up from scratch. You went and sought out, there's people that are already up the learning curve, the best of the best, but you didn't just take on somebody that might be a good marketer, kind of pitching it or marketing it away. You really looked for what you thought was a very logical approach, the most well thought out person in approaching it that way to be able to learn from, and then kind of, do whatever you can to be able to learn from that. And that launched your business. You had a lot of success over that time. Can you talk a little bit about how now in this new world of lockdown, people worried to be able to come in an office. Nobody wants to go to the doctor for certain things, right or wrong, even though hospitals are probably the safest place you can probably go. But people are nervous, and especially if they know people are coming in and out of your offices going through. How have you pivoted your business or kind of looked at different things with your business during this time period?
It's really been interesting. And what I've actually done is I've gone to half staff. I have one nurse practitioner working and our office manager. I have one office personnel that's coming back to work part-time. I personally cannot be there. I have a compromised immune system and lung disease. And so I've been on total lockdown for like 8 weeks, but it's given me time to work on my marketing and rethinking our processes at the office. And I'm still in touch with the office staff and the patients. I still do consultations over Zoom. So things have really changed. And I think it's really going to change the way we practice in the future forever. Offering virtual consultations, offering, different things where they don't actually have to step into the office. One other thing from the entrepreneur side, interesting thing that happened along the way, when I was the first provider for BioTE here in Florida, I was the only one. And so I had patients driving from Tampa, Orlando, Naples, or whatever to see me because they would hear from their friends in Texas or whatever, how wonderful it was. So I had patients throughout the state, and to go with our hormone therapy, there's supplements that help benefit it and help it work better, help the hormones to metabolize safer and all that. So they needed to buy their supplements. So I have my web chick, Heidi Richards. I've known her for like 30 years from NALBO, National Association of Women Business Owners. And I asked her, can you just put up a simple shopping cart? Well, before I knew it, I was receiving orders from all over the country for supplements. It's become its own beast. And
that's awesome.
Where its income is actually rivaling what I make with the practice.
Wow.
Just from that one moment of just putting up that simple website. And for many years, if you Googled BioTE DIM, which is a national product from Texas, we came up first. And that was all organic. I paid nothing for SEO. And so it was just, it kind of and snowballed, and now we're selling more of the supplements than anybody. I received an award last year for selling more of the BioTE supplements than any other practitioner, and I have my own line that's rivaling BioTE supplements because I like the products.
Right. Well, talk a little bit about that. So during this time, obviously you have that. You can't go in the office, and I grew up with asthma. It was not fun. The first 2 weeks of the pandemic, right in the first weeks of March, I got sick, and so I had asthma, so I was really worried, right? And I, had the cough, tight chest. I had a fever one of the nights. It was a night sweat, and so, but my daughter was still going to school, and I was afraid that she was going to give me corona. I was like, I had bronchitis, and I was worried about it.
Yeah.
So I quarantined myself. I'm wearing a mask around the house. I'm sleeping in the guest room, staying away from everybody. And, they weren't testing at that point. 3 weeks later, I find out, I better, all good, didn't go to the hospital, anything like that. But I ended up with having corona that whole time period. I didn't give it to anybody because I locked myself down because I was afraid everybody else would give me. And I was unbelievably worried because of the same thing, that I didn't want to be in my business. And it was before everybody went into lockdown too. And so I had to start rethinking, how do I actually work with people from afar? And as we've started to have almost all 400 people in my one company work remotely, it's the same deal. As many of them have family members or that, how do they actually generate cash flow and revenue from other resources to be able to do it? Sounds like you did it from the vitamin side. Along with that, you still have your office up and running by really good trained staff, although you might have cut expenses going through that. You've also started to take a look at what are some things that people are worried about right now. And I saw some things around building their immune system, which obviously I think everybody's a little more concerned about right now, going, is my immune system strong enough that, I'm probably in the next 2 years with a good shot, I might get it. Am I in a good spot to be able to defend as best I can? Have you tried to, was that a conscious decision to say, I realize that this is something people worry about. I know I can help. Let me go through it. Was it already something you were kind of working towards that you just did it? Because I saw you wrote a blog regarding that part about building up the immune system and talking about how hormones can be able to help that.
Mm-hmm. I haven't really promoted as like a marketing thing, come get your pellets to support the immune system. But for my current patients, I've let them know that what they're doing is supporting their immune system. The hormones do help the body function at its best, at its strongest. And we also, when you come in as a patient, when we do our first blood panel, we're checking your red blood cells, your white blood cells to know if you have anemia, leukemia, infection, anything there. We're checking your kidney, heart, liver enzymes, your sugar. We're checking your hormones, of course, and your thyroid 4 different ways. And then also vitamin D, which is critical for your immune system. And B12 is an energy vitamin and a supporting vitamin. So when we make our recommendations and the patients follow through, their body's functioning as it did maybe 10, 15 years ago. So you do have that strength. You do have that. And then the other part of it is, estrogen is a supporter of the immune system. So for the women that are getting estrogen or producing their own, they're good and strong. And it's not a coincidence that most of the people you see wheeled out of the hospital that are healthy, recovering from the COVID are women. It really, I noticed there way, and then finally I'm poking around asking anybody else, did you notice this? Because mostly you hear sad stories about the guys and you see the women rolled out in a wheelchair. Well, what's the difference? They got estrogen.
That's a good point. That's a good point. As you start to think about it, and I know you're one of your offices in Broward County here in Florida, and it's starting to reopen, although you were an essential business beforehand, as were many of my businesses too, we didn't function the same way that we did afterwards. Obviously, people weren't comfortable coming in, and luckily most of my businesses I could do virtually, but when it comes to seeing a doctor, a lot of them you can do telemedicine via the phone, but you still have to be able to and put the pellets in, I'm sure, in person, right? Yes. They can't do it on their own. Can you talk a little bit about how you're thinking about, as business starts to reopen, how you're thinking about that as a practitioner? And is there anything, habits that you put together, business models that you put in place in the last 2 months that you think will stay ongoing after this, and as we start to come to this new normal of getting back out in society?
Yeah, as you can imagine, I'm chomping at the bit to get back to work. I'm a workaholic.
Yeah.
I love my work. I love my patients. I want to be there. And so for me to get back there is a different thing. But right now, and I'm so very fortunate that I hired the right people. I was told by a fellow businesswoman about a year or two ago, because I was the sole provider in my practice, she says, you have to duplicate yourself, else you're never going to be able to go on a good vacation and relax. You're not going to be able to have a real good life unless you find somebody. And so I searched throughout the country for over a year to find the right fit. And I found this nurse practitioner. She was fairly new graduate, and I was able to train her my way, the right way. And she's smart. I mean, I just tell her something once and she locks it in, she's got it, and then she can apply it. And so I was very fortunate that I found her, and she's been with me for over a year, and she is like a mini me. She's doing great. And then my front office person, my office manager, Nicole, is very diligent. She's like a germaphobe anyway. She's very diligent that there's only one patient in the office at a time in the building, and then they wipe down every surface she came in contact with. They wear gloves and masks. They have the patient use a pen, a BioTE pen that's in a plastic wrap, and then they get to keep the pen, for filling out their paperwork and signing consents. A whole bunch of different little things have been implemented just for my staff's safety as well as the patient's safety. Everybody, Nicole has them wait in their car and then waves them in when it's time to come in. And we're just very cognizant of anything of the germ theory and making sure that we're not part of the problem, because we don't want any of our patients to suffer because of something we did or didn't do. So how did you find the nurse practitioner? You said you searched for a year when you realized you wanted to replicate yourself. Obviously, it seemed like it took a little bit of probably
meeting a number of people, trying to find the right way to source. And, you know, business owners, most of them don't have a recruiting department. They don't mind even having an HR department to be able to go do it. And you as the business owner, especially for a small business, it's up to you to go find talent, and something we were never trained to do, right? It's not like we have this process, because we're not hiring a nurse practitioner every week that we need to build out a system for to be able to do it. Can you talk a little bit about how you actually did that? How'd you source the person? How'd you come about selecting them? Well, is there any replicable systems or learnings that you can be able to take away and share?
I'm afraid it was good luck. I did. I have a good network of nurse practitioners. I helped start a group, a tri-county group, years ago. And so I do have connections with them. So I put the word out through the nurse practitioner community. And I had some that I interviewed. I've heard through word of mouth from other providers, you know, somebody that may be available, and I'd interview them, met one at an expo that I interviewed. And it was I never really felt like it was the right fit. You know, there was just something that wasn't comfortable. And so that's why I had to keep going, went through a personnel agency, didn't find anybody. It actually happened because I hired my current manager, the one, the germaphobe, Nicole. She hired her, and she had worked with her in the past and knew she was available. No, that's not true. We hired the nurse practitioner first, and she got us Nicole. So, I really don't know how we found her. It must have just been word of mouth through the professionals. You know, it wasn't through a structured search. You know, I didn't have somebody focused.
Well, what I loved about what you just said is, you know, obviously you had a sense of what you wanted. You went through a lot of different scenarios, which I think, you know, you have to let everybody know what you're looking for, and sooner or later you'll start to get talent to go through it. And because you're searching for it, you're out there looking, so you know who to ask and that. But the part I really liked about what you just said, so in the interview process, somebody is the best they're ever going to be. And so if there's something in your gut, and you use the words I think, you know, didn't feel right, but if there's something in your gut that says, you know, this person might be a little off, that's the best you're ever going to see them. So if you're getting a sense right now that you're not sure, they're never going to be any better once you hire them that part.
Exactly.
And I know a lot of entrepreneurs make that mistake of still trying to justify or rationalize why they may work. And so congratulations on not doing that and selecting a great person to be able to do it. So, you know, as back to the business, and then we'll kind of wrap going through. So, you know, you've been able to pivot the business in other ways through vitamins and through, you know, other options. You've been able to become a thought leader in this field. Can you just talk a little bit about that part? So, like, I saw an interview where Suzanne Summers was interviewing you and talking about that. How did you get yourself to a position to be a thought leader that when people start thinking about bioidentical hormone providers, you start to become top of mind? Obviously, you were kind of first to the marketplace, which was the reason you didn't have to do SEO before you that. But you've become a thought leader in the field and somebody that people probably want to emulate regarding that. Can you talk about how you did that?
I put myself out there. And when I first started my very first practice, I remember going to a dinner meeting for the National Association of Women Business Owners, and being petrified to stand up and introduce myself, to do my self-introduction. I was so shy, it just was painful. And so I had to first get over that, go to speaking courses and get comfortable speaking about my business, and then putting it out there. Any opportunity that comes up, writing articles, writing for national magazines, for local magazines, speaking at different organizations. I've given over 100 different talks to professional organizations on different things, whether it's business or hormones, and you know, keynote speaks. And that just really, I just kept working at it. You know, I'm a little marketing machine. I love marketing. When I wrote my book on entrepreneurship, that was the thickest chapter and the best chapter. Bootstrap marketing, really, you know, it's been fun. It's, you know, part of the practice that I'm passionate about. And I don't let it go. You know, I have a big wall calendar that's framed in my office, you know, 2 foot by 3 foot. And I mark down every event that I'm scheduled to go to, the ones that I've been to, and I can look at last year's compared to this year. And I don't let a month go by, not even a week go by, that I don't have something scheduled there that's going to help promote me or my practice. So it's just
well,
going for it.
Clearly you've succeeded as a marketer, a thought leader, an entrepreneur, and somebody that leads in your field. who is it? A couple of these listeners, obviously they're listening for the business aspect, but now are probably piqued about what you actually do and how you can help them out with the hormones. Who is the ideal person that would come to your office to be able to look at getting the pellet treatment? And how would they find you?
Okay, well, my target audience, we always talk about our target market in business, is male or female, age 35 to 88. That's my current patient base. And as young as 35, both men and women can be suffering from symptoms of low hormones. And so doing the consultation, doing the blood work will give us a clear picture if that is something. And then I have this one rock star that's 88 playing golf and playing tennis and, hanging out at the club and, just really doing very well. So I really don't like to cap it at 88. I could go a little higher. But that's really it. It's just people that want to feel well, feel like they did maybe 10, 15 years ago, get that mojo back.
And so if you people are interested now, how do they start to research about it and how do they find you?
I have a very robust website. There's a lot on there, a lot of information where they can look at it to see if this is something they want to explore. And it's LOW, T as in Tom, E as in Edward, LowTE, Florida spelled out.com. And on there, there's like you found the video with Suzanne. There's one with Dr. Donovitz talking about the safety of estrogen with women, postmenopausal women, and then several other clips and blogs on there. So it's good information and it really gives you a good idea as to what we do. And then if you'd like, what I'm doing now is I'm doing virtual consultations, doing either Zoom or FaceTime, and talking to the patient to see if this is a good fit for them. And then from there, I can send them a prescription for their labs, or they can go into my office for their labs, and then we can get them started, feeling better sooner rather than later.
Awesome. Well, Carolyn, it was a pleasure speaking to you. It was a very interesting conversation from a business owner and entrepreneur perspective, but also on your business model understanding of what it is. Thanks for talking to us and being so candid in the conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching the Upreneur podcast, and don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe, and share this with anybody who you think needs to hear it.